Hello students, teacher Krishna here and welcome to our next class for the fourth unit. Just like you know, this is the class that is part of the high school in a BYS. We are working on the subject science and on week number 28. Let's go over our presentation and let's start with our end in mind. Students will be able to use Canva to synthesize the content from lesson number 1. And here you have a small summary of activities that you need to complete today. Number 1, access the platform Canva and make a mind map about information from the lesson. Remember to read pages 172 and 173. That is very important because just like always, I include most of the information that you have in your book, but it's always important that you reinforce your reading skills a little bit as well. Number 2, complete the book exercises. And if you have your book with you, you can complete the exercises directly in your book, and if you don't, you can complete them in your notebook. Just make sure to have 2 different sections, one section for the activities in the notebook and one section for the exercises of the book. All right? And number 3, create a compilation of your work in one document that can be either Word or PDF and upload it to Educativa. Something very important is that I already uploaded a PDF document with the pages of the book in case you don't have your book with you. You can double check that on Educativa. Okay, just like I was mentioning before, you need to read, of course, our lesson, and then you need to access canva.com. You are going to find different examples of mind maps, such as the one that you can see right here. So in the center of the diagram, you can write down the title of our topic. And later on, you can actually include more information around it. Okay. Then this is something that you need to include in your notebook. You can do 2 things. If you have a printer at home, you can do it directly in Canva. Then you print it out and paste it in your notebook. Or if not, you can actually just draw it in your notebook. Or if you're working on a digital way, you can just copy and paste it in your summary. Okay, so there are multiple options on how to do it. All right, and just for you to take it into account, this is basically the rubric that I will use to check your mind maps. I'm going to check creativity, and of course, if you want to be exemplary, which is what you are aiming for, and you need to follow in this aspect, which will be creativity is original in thought and demonstrate a knowledge of the project expectations. All right, I'm going to check research or the information of the topic. Research exceeds the required elements of understanding. And then we have spelling and grammar. Excellent use of standard English with minimal or no mistakes. All right, and now let's go with our topic after this brief introduction. So what causes climate? And we are going to double check on how to relate this picture with the following information. Climate changes due to changes in the atmosphere, air, and the ocean. Weather. What is weather? It is a constant change in the environment. They happen every day. So if we talk about the weather in Quetzaltenango, the weather in Shela is super weird. Because sometimes in the morning it's like super cold and it might be raining, but in the afternoon it is a little bit sunny and way hotter than before. So it varies a lot. So one more time, the weather are those conditions that constantly change. But we have another word, which is climate. General conditions of a certain environment, amount of rain, the temperature, the patterns of the wind, etc. So climate can be something a little bit more general, let's say, because just like we mentioned, the weather changes every single day. But when we talk about climate, it's just the average or like the regular weather conditions that we are going to find at a certain location. So one more time, going back to the example of Quetzaltenango, what is our climate like? Well, our climate is let's say a little bit warm and a little bit cold. It's in the middle of both of them. And in most of the seasons, we can say that it's mostly cloudy or sunny. and in some months of the year, it's a little bit rainy. And lastly, the water cycle determines the climate conditions. So the water cycle is something very important because let's say that if there is a lot of water, there is going to be a lot of rain. And going back to the example that I was giving you with this picture. So we have a desert right there. So of course, like there is almost no water in there. So which causes no clouds to be present and of course no rain at all. So that is going to affect the water cycle, of course, because it is not going to determine a lot of natural life around, since it is needed for living things to have way more water. And the temperature is affected by latitude, altitude, distance from large bodies of water, and ocean currents. Okay, and let's start talking about latitude. What is it? So, here we have a very interesting picture. And latitude is the distance at which a place is located from the equator. It is measured in degrees. Okay, so you know that the equator is like the central line that we have going through Earth, which is right here. Okay. So basically, the latitude is the distance of the place from the equator to that specific place. All right. And we have 3 different zones. The first one is the tropical zone, and it can be either located at 23.5 degrees north or 23.5 degrees south. It can be either of them. So here is the equator. So it will be 25 degrees at the top and at the bottom. It receives direct sunlight, which makes the climate generally warm. We also have the polar zone, which is located at 66.5 to 90 degrees north or south. These locations perceive very little sunlight, which makes the climate cold. So basically, we're going to find the polar zone right over here, right at the top. And lastly, we have the temperate zone, which is located from 23.5 to 66.5 degrees north or south. In summer, this zone obtains a lot of sunlight, while in winter the amount of sunlight drastically decreases. This type of zone has both cold and warm weather. Okay, so just to recap, we have the tropical zone, which is the one that you can see right here in red. So just like you can notice, Guatemala is located right over here. So our climate is generally warm. We also have polar zones. The polar zones are the ones that are right here at the top and at the bottom. And the weather is very cold because it doesn't receive that much sunlight. And then we have the temperate zone, which are the ones in sky blue that are signalized right here. So in temperate zones, the weather varies a lot. And just like in United States, there are very drastic changes from summer to winter. So in summer, it's super hot, but in winter, it's super cold. And that's why they actually have the 4 seasons, not like in Guatemala. All right, let's continue. We also have the altitude. And I really like this picture because you can notice that right here at the bottom, there is a lot of nature and a lot of trees, and it looks like a warm type of weather. But right over here at the bottom, there is a mountain that even has snow. So why does that happen? How high a place is located determines the amount of temperature drop. Even if a mountain is located at a tropical zone or a warm weather, it can be frozen if it is tall enough. And in the troposphere, the temperature decreases 6.5 degrees Celsius per kilometer. Right, so that is why exactly. So the altitude from this place in the mountain is different. So since it is very high, the temperature drops a lot. And specifically, that's why we have a lot of snow in that mount in there. Now we have an exercise. So think about the Santa Maria volcano. Remember, there is a drop of 6.5 degrees Celsius per every kilometer high. It has an altitude, the volcano has an altitude of 3,772 meters. An approximation can be 4 kilometers high. So my question is, if you know that today's temperature in Quetzaltenango is 13 degrees Celsius, what is the temperature at the top of the volcano today? So, I'm not going to complete the exercise here, but we are going to complete it during the live session, okay? So make sure to complete this exercise, and we are going to discuss it during our Zoom session today. Let's continue with the distance from large bodies of water. So, large bodies of water, such as lakes and oceans, affect the climate conditions. Take into consideration the amount of evaporation and that water bodies heat up and cool down 5 times slower than regular ground. So, if a place is located to a big body of water, such as an ocean, you are going to have way more precipitation or way more rain. And just like it's mentioned there, water is going to heat up and cool down way slower than ground. Marine climates, they are characteristics of mild winters and cool summers. We also have continental climates. They reach drastic temperature. They typically have very cold winters and highly warm summers. Oh, all right, now we move to the next part, which is ocean currents. And ocean currents are very interesting. And I'm pretty sure that sometimes you have seen like a very big cloud, like the one that you can see right here, in which it's causing a lot of rain. But why does that happen? We have something called monsoons. They are large bodies of sea and land breezes over a large region of land that change their climate conditions. So basically, a monsoon is basically this huge cloud with a lot of rain that only takes place at certain locations and that constantly mobilizes because there was a drastic change in the weather conditions, in the climate conditions, let's say. In South Asia, there are warm winds that arrive from the sea to the land. It generates more evaporation, thus more precipitations. It causes that the climate in general gets colder. So when a big body of wind arrives to the land, and depending on the temperature, which in this case is a type of weather that is way warmer, it is going to generate more evaporation and effects such as monsoons. Oh, all right. So that is basically it for today's presentation, guys. Thank you a lot for coming, and remember to make your summary in Canva today. And of course, the summary in your notebook or in your digital way, you can, let's say, you can write down the date, you can write down the title, as well as the ending mind, and lastly, you need to include the mind map from Canva. So that's it for me today. Thank you all for coming. I will see you around during our Zoom session. So goodbye, guys, and always take care.